Hi there, it's Mark, and today in Lightroom we're going to convert a daytime picture to a nighttime picture. Now, although this is how to do that, it's more really a lesson on masks, because apart from some severe drops in exposure to kind of ready the picture for this, it is nighttime after all, so we want it to be dark, the vast majority of the work is done within masks. Intersecting masks in particular to bind the changes within shapes or to make them graduated. Now this is a free picture from Adobe stock. The name there you can search on, but I've also got it in a zip file. It's on my website and the link is down below in the video notes should you want to go and get that and play along at the same time. So that's it really as far as intros go. If you want to be able to take a picture like this and convert it to something like this and only use Lightroom, this is the right channel and this is the right video. So I'm going to roll the credits while you go off and download said picture to play along. And if you've already got it or you don't want to play along, just want to watch, then while the credits are playing, why don't you hit that subscribe button? I'm very pleased with growing my subscribers, even though it's just over 1,000. It's getting there, so help nudge it along. And if you think it warrants a like, give it a like. If you're telepathic, psychic, what's the word when you can tell the future? If you're a fortune teller and you know you're going to like this, you could click a like now. I'll see you in a few seconds. We're in sunny Lightroom and we're about to start this edit. But first I just want to make a small point about other versions of Lightroom. You can see down here we've got LRC, that's Lightroom Classic, which is what I'm using today. But of course there's something called Lightroom, which does not have the word classic over it. And there's something in Photoshop called Adobe Camera Raw or ACR. And for all intents and purposes, these are all the same thing. So over here in our develop panel, I've got my basics and I've got exposure, contrast, highlights and so on. And I've got this little thing here which will take us into masks, which is where we're predominantly going to be working today. If I just bump along one, this is what it looks like, as you can just see here in Lightroom Classic. This is what it looks like in Camera Raw and in Lightroom Non-Classic. I don't know what to call that. Lightroom Cloud or just Lightroom? Anyhow, they're all the same. They're slightly different named. Basic becomes light, and some of the aspects of light, like the colors, are taken out into the other panels. And in Lightroom, it's called light as well. Let me highlight those. Okay, so there you can see basic becomes light and light between Classic, Camera Raw and Lightroom. And some of the other things have subtly different names, but all the functionality is there. The red square shows where the masks are, and in the next picture they are the masks. Over here in Classic you've got your main subject sky background, in Camera Raw subject sky background, and in Lightroom subject sky background, and the variations of them in there. So same basically. So if you use one of those other two, you can still follow my videos. Okay, let's get started with this edit, and apologies in advance if this is a little bit long, but you can watch it in segments. That's because there's a lot to get through and I don't like to do things such as highlight that, drop it down 2 points on the exposure, move on. I want to explain why we're doing things, teaching you the actual techniques, not just how to edit this picture. Because this picture, yes, it's day into night, but it's also about masks. The techniques you take away are nothing to do with this picture per se. It's how you approach doing pictures like this, and therefore the technique and understanding it is better than just copying. Enough said. Right, first things first, I'll just get rid of this little sidebar. Give us a little bit more room. I want to make this a little bit more dark. So I'm going to take the exposure down. This is on general editing. A couple of stops. I'm going to take my blacks down. Incidentally, I'm showing you a problem here in a second. Take my blacks down. Possibly take the tone curve and take a little bit more out and a bit more in the highlights. And then I will leave it like that for the moment. Now, when I get that properly, I won't do the masks in the order I'm doing them right now, because I want to show you what the problem is. I want to mask out this window here to put a light in it. So let's go to our masks. Let's, I don't know, choose an object selection tool. And let's come down here, fill it in, and it should join the dots for us. And it has. Is that a good selection? Well, you know what? I can't tell. So I'm going to prove it to myself by doing something I don't want to do with it, which is throw the exposure way up. And look how we've got the window, yes, but we've also got this stanchion. If the light is inside coming out, this front stanchion would not be lit. So that was not a good selection. Of course, I could now subtract with the brush and come down and repair. But wouldn't it be nicer if I could have seen what that looked like in the first place? Incidentally, this is why I say the technique I'm going to show you doesn't necessarily have to be applied, it just makes it easier. How could I have made that mask more specific right from the go? Well, I could have done it if I didn't have all that exposure down, so I'm just going to reset it. Come back in. And now my first mask is going to be my general edits. Linear gradient, click to the side, drag off to the right, and there is no gradient shown. You know how a gradient works. Solid graduates off to nothing, and that's the central line. Well, by doing it completely off the side, I've effectively highlighted the entire picture. So I will now take that exposure down. I'll now take the blacks down, where I'm losing that window a bit. I'll even add that curve that I had in. And I'm going to call that my general edit. Now I want to do that same window. Okay, so all I do is just switch that off. I didn't have to jump out and undo the exposure. I just switch that mask off, create a new mask. Let's create an object. Let's come inside here. And that's much better. Look, it didn't choose the stanchion. I've got a much better selection because I was able to see. So let's do something with it. Let's bring the exposure up and let's switch that back on. I do need that back on in order to see the level of change required here. So I wanted to bring the exposure up a bit more, possibly lift the shadows up, possibly take the overall level of this adjustment up, and you can see I've got a much better representation of what's going on in that window. Alright, I'm actually going to delete that mask, but you now get the point. This general edit allows me to switch it off so I've got better visibility, switch it back on without having to keep jumping out from masks, go into my normal general edits, make some changes, coming back into masks. There's nothing to stop you doing a lot of your tonal general edits as a mask. Right, let's get cracking with this, and we'll go slowly on each piece and then we'll speed up when we've got repetition on those pieces. So the first thing I want to do is the sky. I want the sky much darker. So let's go and select sky. And notice how it's leaked over. Now sky can do that. So I will link to a video above now which shows you how you can improve your sky selections. But for now, it's a dark picture. I don't care if there is bleed over. So I'm going to use this to do my general edits. I've taken that down. Of crushing my blacks a little bit. Of putting some blue in the sky. And I think I'm probably quite happy with that as having crushed the sky. Let's just click on it and call it sky just so we'll keep track of things. I'm doing these in no particular order, but I'm going to add the glow to the pavement that's coming from the street lamp. So let's create another one. Let's go radial gradient. Let's drag that radial gradient out. Position it about there. I don't really need use the general edit one in this case. This one's far more self-evident, and I will use that to lift the exposure a little bit, put some yellow in from the sodium light that we're assuming it's a sodium light, so it'll be yellow. Now it's important on feather here, we don't want the pool of light to be like that, but we do want it feathered, so I think somewhere around there. Possibly lift the shadows a little bit. Highlights, a little more exposure. Okay. That's our first pool of light on the ground. A bit too yellow, I think. I want another one in front of the door here. Well, let's just label that light pool. Label it light pool 1. Because I'm now going to duplicate it and then drag it over to in front of the window. Now, the idea here is this is light coming out through the window. Now here the light will be at the base from it coming down. Here any light spill, because there's a wall, won't be where my cursor is now. It won't be there because that brick will stop it. The light has to come out of the window and fall out. So this will be a bit further over the pavement. So I'm putting that one there. And that's my double click on it, light pool 1 copy. I'm just going to call it light pool 2. Next up, let's put some lights in these windows, shall we? So let's going to create an object using this and select the whole front. Okay, that looks a bit excessive, Mark. It does indeed. And then I'm going to sweep out where I've gone over the top, but I can't see that yet, so I'm just going to switch this one off, come back to this one and choose subtract with a brush. Click once, move my cursor, shift, click again, once, shift, click again, and then I'll get rid of that little bit. Lamppost, click once, shift, click again. Of course, you could just have painted all these in by hand, regardless. That's certainly one way of doing it. All these other masks just are accelerated and better ways of creating the masks. There's nothing to say you can't just do everything with a brush. It would take a lot more time. But there we go. We've kind of got that in now. Actually, I didn't want to remove that. That is part of the doorway. So let's add that back in. Oh, add with a brush and add it back in. So what have we got now? Let's switch that back on. We've got a mask which is all of these windows, but the light inside the window is brighter at the top and less at the bottom. So I want to put some sort of gradient on this. So let us intersect, option key for intersect, with a linear gradient and just drag it down like this so that we can see that this is starting at the top and fading out as it comes down through. And what do I want to do? Well, I probably want to increase exposure. Shadows is probably the most likely one to use. Get some highlights in there. Whites. And then a bit more exposure. And then, because it's still not bright enough, we can start to play with this. I might want to make the gradient a bit less. Bring this down a bit more. How's that looking? I want to brighten it a little bit more again, so I'm just going to slide my overall amount up. But I've got a bit of light in here. Yes, well, there's every chance there will be a light behind this awning as you go under before the door. There will be some sort of light there. Let's have a look at what that looks like now. So we can always get a before and after in Lightroom with the / key. So there's the before and there's the after. So that is how I did my first set of lights coming down with these windows. There's a door here, so let's just I'll start to speed up on these now. So let's go brush, auto mask. I've got it on full floor, full opacity. I'm just going to brush in here, and I want to lift the exposure in there too. Shadows, bump it up using that. Just put a little bit of glow on that door. Let's go back to this one for a second, because I forgot to add a bit of yellow in, because I want to make these a bit more yellow. I should have done it on this one while I was there, but there we go. Put that a bit more yellow. So there's that door. Let's do the same on this window, but how big is this window and what's that in the middle? I can't remember. Let's just quickly switch off. Oh, hang on, before we do this. Left shop. Front windows. This one was left shop, small door window. Okay, I want to do the same with this, but I can't really work out how much of a stanchion I've got versus what this thing is in the middle. So let's quickly switch this off, and it all becomes apparent. So create new mask. I'm going to go with my brush. I'm going to switch auto mask off, and I'm just going to paint like so. The reason why I'm swapping between some of the tools like object and brush is just to demonstrate that you can use them all. It's just the combination, how you think of the combination. Now I've spilled out a little bit there, but that is fine because it's feathered and light will spill out. So let's switch this one back on. Get my general edit, come back here, and let's do exposure up, shadows up, light up. I intersected these windows because it seemed like the right thing to do. I think this door needs a bit more on it because it's a door. I think this top here needs a bit more light as well. So I'm actually going to left window, left shop. Sorry, I get distracted very easily. I'm now going to create another mask, which is a radial gradient. I'm going to bring it down into this window, and I'm going to increase the exposure a little bit more, certainly a little bit more yellow, and lift the shadows a little bit more. But I don't want it outside of the window, and currently it's going on the brickwork. So this time I'm just going to use subtract with the brush, with the mask off, and I'm going to run that out myself. Okay, let's get some more on this door. So additional light, right shop, main window. I've just realized in typing right shop I might got me rights and lefts mixed up, so but you saw what I did, so I'll forgive myself. This door needs to be a lot more, so I'm now going to add an object. Can't really see the door. Let's switch this off a second. Right, so go back to create an object. With a brush. That's good, that's within, and I got all the stanchion. Would I've seen the same had I had that off? Possibly not. So this is left shop, main door, and I'll increase the exposure. Now why is that exposure coming down from the top when I didn't put a gradient on it? Any ideas? It's because we already had a graduated exposure in there. So we're actually putting one on top of the other. So this whole door has lit up by that amount, but there was already half of it lit up on this one, left shot front windows. So if I switch that off, you can see that that exposure didn't really do much. If I switch it back on, because one went on top of the other, it works. Okay, I want to do these now. So let's go and create an object. And let's just paint that middle bit in. I'm trusting the object will work on this one. It did. I didn't have to switch off my general edit to do it. And let's just bump that up as well with exposure. Get a bit of yellow in there. Lift the shadows definitely. Exposure down and shadows more, I think. And then overall lift the whole thing. Now, is that a window there? Well, let's switch this off. Yes, there's a little side window. I didn't see that, but it needs doing. So let's come, that was right shop door oval. Let's do that window. So I'll need to switch this off to see what I'm doing. I'll create a mask with a brush, auto mask on. I'll just come down through this window like so. Switch that back off. You can see the advantage of not having to keep jumping back out and in. That's a bit sloppy at the bottom, isn't it? Well, let's see what it does. We'll just do it anyway. This is night into day. Sorry, this is day into night, so you can get away with murder when it comes to spilling light and how that's going to work. There we go. Now just switch this off a second. I think I want to put light along there. I'm not sure if they're windows or not. So I'll leave that switched off for the moment. What was that? That was right shop. I'm sure I've got my lefts and rights all over the place. Door side. Right, so let us create a new mask with a brush. And I want it quite feathered. I want it a little bit bigger. And I'm going to paint along there like that. And then I'm going to hold my option key down. You can go to subtract, but I'm showing you lots of different ways. Option key, and if you notice the middle of my brush is currently a plus. Option key, it becomes negative. Or Alt key on a PC. I'm going to make it smaller. And I'm going to paint out there because I don't want it in there. Because this is light from underneath the awning. Okay, switch that back off. That's kind of okay. Go back in here. Let's get a light up. Make it a bit more sodium-ish. Shadows. Alright, let's go before and after. This was right shop awning. Before and after with our backslash key. We're coming along. Okay. You get the whole gist of this by now, I hope. So let's do this street light, shall we? Let's just bang in a very small radial gradient over the center of this. Bump the exposure up a bit. Certainly lift the shadows. Get a bit of temperature in it. Exposure a little bit more. I know it doesn't look right, but we're going to surround it now. So this is street light core. Create a new radial gradient. Something like that. But I want it far more feathered, I think. Not that way, that way. And I will lift the exposure up on that. I'll put the yellow up on that as well. And lift the shadows. Bit too bright. Take that down. Main street light. I'm eating away time here, sorry guys, but I want to see it through. I've dropped back the beauty of labeling them. I've gone back to the core and I'm going to take the core down a little bit. I'm actually going to change the feather which is another advantage. You can change all these things afterwards in Lightroom. Nothing's burnt in. And I want to make that a little bit brighter again, I think. Put a bit of highlights in it. Okay, so I'm nearly there with this edit. What do I want to do now? Well, I want to put a suggested light at the top of these. So let's do another intersect. So let's go Object. That'll do. Right loft window. I want to intersect this, so Option key or Alt key, intersect with a radial gradient, which I'll start up here. And I want to adjust the feather on it and bring it down. So now you can see, as I bring it down, you can see how that intersect works. There. And I want to lift the light up, put a bit of colour in it, shadows up. Rinse and repeat. So let's create another object. Get it in here. Intersect, Alt Option key, radial gradient. Something like that. Exposure, bit of yellow in it. And on that I want to make that a little bit smaller. So you've got some light in there. Now, just to finish this off, before and after, just to finish this off for now, you can fiddle on with it as much as you like. I would like to say do something with this particular fascia. How would I select that? Well, this is what I would want to try and distill, the option of the various tools. I think I will try color range, and I'm going to click on it. Now, yes, it's picked that color, but that color is found everywhere. Firstly, let's refine it. That in itself is now quite a good selection, but it's still places I don't want it. So all I'm going to do this time is Option to intersect with my brush. I'm going to make my brush a little bit wider with the right hand bracket key, and I'm just going to brush on, and it will only select where the two things intersect. So all that stuff that was on the walls and that before is now gone. And what I want to do with this is the upper wood front. I didn't label that one, there you go. What I want to do with this one, I just want to take down a little bit more of the light. I'm going to close that off now. And there's only two things I want to do with this picture now. Three. One is put a heavier vignette on the whole thing to close in the edges a bit more. Two is to bump the overall exposure up a tiny bit. And three, I want to put a profile on. Oh, I like that. I like how the orange is coming out in that one. Oh, I like that one as well. 3 or 4. What do you want? I'm going 3. And how much of it do I want in? Less or more? I'm going to go a little bit more. So there you go. That's a long video. I apologize for that, but we went through an awful lot. At the end of the day, it's about using masks, understanding what your masks do, and how adding them, subtracting them, intersecting them can help you select the thing you want to do. And when you're making a night scene from a day scene, and your general edits scupper your ability to see, put those general edits in a mask of its own. So switch it on and off, before and after. Right, I am now going for a, what time is it? It's something like 10 at night, so I'm going for a beer. Catch you on the next one. Bye for now.